Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome to my show, and thank you all for coming. I was thinking about the world a while ago. The world just seems crazier. Every year it just seems like it's going crazy, and I'm not talking about big things. I'm not talking about war and poverty and stuff like that. I'm just little things. I read a while ago that in the United States, zookeepers make more money than teachers. This is true. Did you read this? And I find that just astounding. I don't know if you've checked out the graduation rates in those zoos, but they are pathetic. In Los Angeles, where people drive only on pavement all their lives, where they won't see snow until the next ice age, people buy four-wheel drive vehicles. Right? What is the thinking there? If this pavement ever melts, we'll be ready. Do you ever get the feeling the universe is expanding because all the other planets are trying to get away from Earth? I figure someday we're going to have visitors from other planets, and I've written a song of welcome. Welcome to the asylum. We're all crazy here. No ifs, ands, or buts. This whole world is nuts. We'll try to explain it to you, and you can be crazy too. You can all join in on this if you like. I know it's early, you just sat down, you're not ready to sing, and I feel exactly the same way. So let's try it together. Welcome to the asylum. We're all crazy here. Ready? Welcome to the asylum. We're all crazy here. No ifs, ands, or buts. This whole world is nuts. No ifs, ands, or buts. This whole world is nuts. We'll try to explain it to you, and you can be crazy too. We'll try to explain it to you, and you can be crazy too. Welcome to Earth. This is where, if a car has a rattle, we'll spend hundreds of dollars to fix it. But what's the first thing we give a baby? I say, put the baby in the car. This is where a guy in California, remember this? A guy spent $40 million of his own money to try to buy a Senate seat. Remember that? And he finished third. This is not smart shopping. Any fool could have told him, go to Idaho. For that kind of money, you could get 2 Senate seats, the governorship, half the legislature, and a place to drive that four-wheel drive vehicle. This is where every year there's an item in the paper about officials burning a field of marijuana and then being overcome by the smoke. Doo-doo-doo. And all I can say is, welcome to the asylum. We're all crazy here. No ifs, ands, or buts. No ifs, ands, or buts. This whole world is nuts. We'll try to explain it to you, and you can be crazy too. Normal people can't take this kind of stuff. Right here in this room, we probably have some normal people. Okay, maybe not. But I still get nervous, and that's why I started ICC training, the Institute for Constructive Craziness. We'll teach you how to deal with our world. We have a staff of experts. Our ethics class is taught by the Salt Lake City Olympics Committee. Health and Nutrition by Ronald McDonald. Humility by Donald Trump. Improvisational Humor by Al Gore. Public Speaking by George W. Bush. Dress for Success by Willie Nelson. How to Rise Above Politics by the United States Supreme Court. Bodybuilding by Michael Jackson. And Aerobics by Homer Simpson. We guarantee craziness. And in just a few short weeks, you'll start noticing little bits of insanity, little moments that make it all worthwhile. My ex-wife's father was in the military. One day he came home wearing camouflage. And she looked up and said, "Hi, Dad." He said, "You can't see me." I love that. I just think... A friend of mine told me this story. He and his brother flew somewhere, and they went to get their bags, and they were standing by the carousel, and they looked up, and his brother's clothes started coming down the belt. There's like a sock and a couple T-shirts and some jeans, and the brother was very calm about it. People were staring at him, and he just stood at the bottom of the belt and gathered up all his clothes. And he stood there with this big bundle in his arms, and he turned and he said, "I've got to get some luggage." Welcome to the asylum. We're all crazy here. I'm doing a lot of flying lately, a lot of flying. Have you noticed that pilots are getting really young? They look like they're in high school or something, and they're getting into fly a 747, and you think, what's going on here? I hate it when they come up to the boarding gate on a skateboard and got their pilot's hat on backwards. You know, I don't know. Got a lot of parents here, a lot of kids, and there's always that battle going on too, because kids rebel, don't they? Kids always rebel. That's their job in life. Do you realize if kids never rebelled, the world would never change? I mean, they just do what their parents told them, and it'd just be this constant loop, and it'd just be the same. So kids rebel, and I did, you probably did. When I was little, I wouldn't color between the lines. I wouldn't do it. My parents thought, uh-oh, we got a rebel. And then they realized I needed glasses. This job was a rebellion. I can't tell you how excited my parents were when I graduated from college and said, "I'm going to go sing in sleazy bars." They said, "Oh, Mike, this is what we've always dreamed of." We are so proud. And I'm still a rebel. I still rebel. When I get on airplanes, I have this overwhelming desire to rise up and overthrow first class. Don't you? I just hate first class. They've got those curtains there, and you can't go past them because those people are better than you. They get leg room. You can tell the first class people, right? They get off the plane, they can walk. Everyone else is all scrunched up, just trying to. Rebels. Kids always rebel. That's the way it is. If you're a bleeding heart liberal, you know your kids are going to end up working for IBM or General Motors. If Bill Clinton had a son, he'd be celibate. If Jerry Falwell had a son, he'd be Bill Clinton. That's the truth, isn't it? The minister's kids are always the wildest ones in town, right? And I wondered if the reverse were true. What if you had a crime family? How would those kids rebel? He was low, he was evil, he was ruthless and mean, the worst crime lord the country's ever seen, the Godfather, out to prove crime pays, but you just can't trust the kids these days. The Godfather. I met him in the crime capital of the Western world, Ritzville, Washington. Once again, people around the country are going to wonder why that's funny. The Godfather of Ritzville, Don Corleone Gustafson. And he was a sad man. He was saying, "Oh, Mike, I had such beautiful dreams for my kids, beautiful criminal dreams. I dreamed of them growing up, dropping out of school, getting into fights, knocking over liquor stores. Yes, but they all rebelled. My son Vito, huge, mean-looking, would have made a great enforcer. But no, opened up a flower shop. Spent his spare time working with the homeless. My daughter, Gloria, scheming, conniving, money-driven. Did she go into the rackets? Did she go into gambling? No, not my Gloria. Became a fundraiser for a major political party. My son, Nunzio, wildly handsome, intelligent, women all over him, would have made a great crime lord, but no, not my Nunzio. Ran off to Fire Island with his life partner, Biff. I tell you, Mike, I flew into a rage. I called the kids together and I took center stage. I said, "You kids are going back to crime or your lives won't be worth a dime." Well, they tried, but they just weren't very good at it. My son Franco tried to mug a guy, used a Swiss Army knife, but he pulled the wrong blade. Got arrested for attempted tweezering. My son Roscoe spent 2 weeks trying to think of a name for his gun. If you don't read old detective stories, that is not funny at all. And then he got caught trying to fix a professional wrestling match. Got booked for redundancy. My daughter, Gloria, couldn't think of a crime. One night she ripped off all her clothes and streaked to fundamentalist convention. Got booked back for next year. My son Nunzio tried to burn down a warehouse, collect the insurance, but it was a dark night. He got the wrong building. Burned down the insurance company. And Vito, poor Vito, man, he committed bigamy. Married Tanya Harding and Lorena Bobbitt. Judge let him go just to see what would happen. I tell you, Mike, you just can't win. They were total failures at evil and sin. But then the family came back strong, because that's when the grandchildren came along. Grandchildren. Grandchildren who rebelled against their law-abiding parents. They were beautiful. My favorite was little Roscoe Jr. 4 years old, they caught him trying to fix a t-ball game. Caught him running a hot tricycle ring. Yeah, he grew up, got into fights, dropped out of school, stole cars, robbed liquor stores. I was so proud he was a chip off the old block. Then he got caught smuggling drugs into Colombia. Right then, I knew the family was doomed. And sure enough, another family came along and wiped us out. They were low, they were mean, they were evil and sinister. I should have known they were the kids of the minister. Rebels. I've been married twice, divorced twice, and I'm starting to figure out that I'm not very good at being married. I think a lot of people don't ever realize that, and I do. My job is not conducive to marriage. I travel a lot, and that's hard. A lot of wives like you to come home now and then, and so I took some time off and went home, and that's when she filed for divorce. So I know there are a lot of married people here, and I admire people who are good at that, and admire people who can make a marriage work. I just want to ask you one thing. You people who have been married a long time, do you have thermostat wars? You do, don't you? That's right. One person is always cold, and the other one's always hot. I like a house that is warm and cozy. It feels better playing the guitar and stuff, and my wife, last time I was man, she had that thing turned down. I mean, it was cold in there. I don't know about you, but when I go to the bathroom, I don't think I should have to chip a hole in the ice. And the other problem I had was pets. Both my wives love pets, and I think that is a wonderful trait. I think that's a very nice character thing to have. And I like animals. If I like animals, I don't know if I want to live with a lot of them. When I was married, we had 2 dogs and 2 cats, and that was a little bit overwhelming for me. For one thing, their personalities are totally different. You know that, right? Dogs and cats. Our dogs were enthusiastic. I mean, they were up for everything. Yeah, I'd be sitting there reading a book, perfectly content, and they'd be looking and saying, "Oh man, that is boring. What a stupid thing. You'd have a lot more fun throwing this tennis ball about 300 times. And we could chase it. Now we're talking fun. Hey, look outside, there's a blizzard, it's 40 below, let's go play. Yeah, boy, now we're talking fun, that'll be great." These dogs are enthusiastic. You go to the beach. You know, I like going to the beach. I like the waves and the sunsets and stuff. Dogs are out there, "Whoa, boy, this is great. Look, there's something dead. Let's go roll in it." Oh, I love life. Gosh, it's great. I love it. Dogs, living with those 2 dogs are like living with Richard Simmons and Tony Robbins. Just a little bit too much enthusiasm. And the cats were the opposite. The cats were like, they thought it was nice of them to let me live in that house. The cats are just snobs, they are. They say stuff like, "You can pet me, but you'd better do it right." You call that food? I wouldn't feed that to a dog. Dogs are over there saying, "Hey, we'll eat it. Oh, looks good, dog. Oh, I love life." So I wasn't very good at marriage, and so I'm single. I have a lot of fun. I date, and I don't always make good choices. Then again, neither do women. Yeah. 2 of them married me. Every now and then I check out the singles ads. Do you look at those? They're fun to look at. I love the singles ads. I find it astounding that so many perfect people have such problems finding someone to go with. And I thought it needed a song, and I wrote a song about two people who met through the singles ads. I found her in the singles ads, and that's where she found me. Both our ads promised love's sweet mystery. I can't forget that moment. I thank my lucky star when I read DWNSNDISOLTR. I have no idea what that means. None at all. Well, with poetry like that, I had to read some more and knew I'd found the woman I'd been searching for. Attractive divorcee, full of life, bubbly, balanced personality, fine sense of humor, filled with inner peace, willing to take risks, loves family values, and needs someone to fill the emptiness. I couldn't wait to call. This was meant to be. But then my phone rang, and she was calling me. She'd read my singles ad, and it had that magic touch. I was the DMNSNDISOLTR she'd been searching for so much. Yes, I was a PhD, loves the outdoors, in great shape, in touch with my inner self, sharp dresser, loves water sports, gated communities, and sipping wine by the fire. Have you noticed that? Every single person in the world loves to sip wine by the fire. It's a rule. They have to love that. They could be in the middle of the Mojave Desert, 140 degrees. They'd be saying, hey, let's build a fire, sip some wine. And their dogs would be out there saying, hey, look, there's something dead, let's roll in it. Cats would be out there saying, you call that wine? Feed that to a dog. Well, we spent hours on the phone. She agreed to meet with me. That's when our dreams crashed into harsh reality. All those pretty words were badly flawed. As for truth in advertising, we'd both committed fraud. My ad, translated, should have read, PhD. Right, pretty heavy drinker. Loves the outdoors. I sometimes pass out in doorways. In great shape for sumo wrestling. In touch with my inner self. Little voices tell me what to do. Sharp dresser. My dresser was built by a guy named Sharp. Loves water sports. My hot tub has little rubber duckies. Loves gated communities. Just spent 6 months in prison. And sipping wine by the fire. That's how they caught me after I burned down that liquor store. I felt so low, so mean, so perverse. But then we checked out her ad. It was even worse. Attractive divorcee. Right. Divorced 17 times. Now listed as her occupation. Full of life. Full of brownies and pound cake. Bubbly. Tends to burp a lot. Balanced personality. Half manic, half depressive. fine sense of humor. Her jokes could gross out Howard Stern. Filled with inner peace. Tends to overdo her medication. Willing to take risks. Is a compulsive gambler. Loves family values. Just stole 10 grand from her sister's trust fund. And needs someone to fill the emptiness. Her bathroom tile needs grout. We started to argue, got in a huge fight. I bumped into a candle and it set the drapes alight. As the sirens drew closer and the smoke and flames rose higher, they found us outside, sipping wine by the fire. I don't drink anymore. Not much. Every now and then I'll have a beer, but it used to be a lot easier to solve problems when you were drunk. You get a bunch of drunks together, they can solve the world in about 10 minutes. But trying to do it sober, that's hard. I've thought about a lot of things. Minefields. Minefields are terrible. They're all over the world, and they're just awful and scary, and I can solve that problem. I think we should turn them into golf driving ranges. Get a bunch of golfers out there hitting balls in there. You clean those things out in no time. Hit a mine, win a prize. Nobody asked me how to solve these problems. I don't know why. Gridlock. I live near Seattle. Seattle has got horrible traffic problems. I mean, it is just jammed and it's awful. And my theory there is simple. As soon as you get to the outskirts of a city, you have to park your car and switch to go-karts. Right? I love go-karts. I mean, they're fun. And you could have 30 lanes on the freeways. You could have parking for everyone. It'd be great. Nobody asks me. Gutters and downspouts. Have you thought about those? We've had thousands of years to figure out how to get water off a roof, and that's the best we can come up with. Every year there's people up on rickety ladders cleaning leaves out of gutters, and it's just stupid. Got to the point where I told my wife she couldn't do that anymore. I'm divorced now, and I don't know why. I'll tell you something else I've solved. The Middle East peace process. I've actually written a book about the Middle East peace process. It's called From Here to Eternity. But I thought about this, because last year we had a meeting at Camp David. The leaders from the Middle East came to Camp David and tried to find peace, and they failed, and I can tell you why. Because the leaders in the Middle East have horrible jobs. I mean, they're dealing with backstabbers and power struggles, and they've got religious fanatics and nationalist fanatics and terrorists, and it's hot and it's dusty. It's a horrible job being a leader in the Middle East. And then we bring them to Camp David, which is pristine and beautiful, and there's trees and birds and flowers. And the leaders get there and they say, you know, if we find peace, we're going to have to go back. But if we don't find peace, we can stay here a while. And if we still don't find peace, we can come back next year. There is no incentive for them to find peace. I think the smart thing to do would take those leaders somewhere else. Take them up to Fargo, North Dakota. Take them up there in January. Get them up there with a wind chill factor about minus 80. Put them in a Motel 6 next to a Denny's. I guarantee they'll find peace. I give them about 3 hours. They say, we found it. We can go now. Start de-icing the airplane. We're out of here. I'm going to do a Middle Eastern song now. This is a Middle Eastern song. It's an ancient song, very rare song, quite possibly the only Middle Eastern song ever written to a calypso beat. You just don't hear this from other entertainers. I'll sing you a song of a distant land where the sun shines daily on the desert sand, a land of ancient mystery and the strangest battle in history. Who remembers the greatest inventor of all the Middle East? He was half Iraqi, half German. Saddam von Bismarck. And he invented amazing things. He invented a catapult so huge it could hurl boulders as big as Buicks. Two things hurt his invention. One, his country was not at war. And two, if you're in the middle of a desert, it's hard to find boulders as big as Buicks. Have you ever tried to catapult sand? It was a stupid invention, but it didn't stop him. One day he saw a tent being blown around in a storm and he got an idea. And he tied ropes around the edge of the tent and called it a parachute. One thing hurt his invention. The airplane wouldn't come along for another 800 years. And then he got drafted into the army. And he got tired of dragging a cannon through the sand, so he mounted it on a camel and called it the mother of all weapons. Two things hurt his invention. One, it is very difficult to aim a camel. And two, when he fired it, the camel did not react in a calm manner. This led to the first rule of the desert: never stand behind a camel. But then came war. Saddam's army found itself surrounded by 10,000 crusaders, and the soldiers yelled insults at each other. They yelled, "Heathen, infidel, God is on our side. No, he's not, he's on our side." And God was up there thinking, why did I create these people? But Saddam had a plan. He would catapult himself over the enemy lines, parachute down, and run for help. He called to his wife, who was half Chinese, half Scottish, Wu Chen Glenlivet. She grabbed his parachute, ran to the catapult, stood there waiting. He rushed over, accidentally tripped on the trigger, and sent her flying into the air. It was the world's first case of pitching woo. And as she flew up, she made two major decisions. One, to file for divorce. And two, to put on that parachute. She strapped on the parachute, floated down between the enemy lines, and the soldiers thought she was an angel. And she convinced them to lay down their weapons and embrace each other in brotherhood and love. And they did. And that peace lasted 4 days, 17 hours, and 27 minutes, which for the Middle East is still an all-time world record. And the Crusader king saw this and realized she was a woman above all women. And he embraced Wu Chen, this king of renown, took her to England and rented a plot where they sold desert animals for no money down. And it became famous. It was a Camelot. I saw an ad a while ago. It was one of those medical ads. I think it was for arthritis medicine. And it was a typical ad, it had people running and jumping through the meadows, and then it was followed by 3 pages of those disclaimers, right? And it's really fine print in light gray. Have you noticed that? So no one of the age to get arthritis could ever read it. But I always read the harmful side effects, because there are some amazing harmful side effects in these things. One of the big ones in a lot of these medicines is impotence. And I thought, now, boy, that's a tough decision. Let's see, arthritis or impotence? Which one? But this one of the harmful side effects was death. I thought, now that's got to be the record. I think. Yeah, he's dead, but his arthritis is cleared right up. Look, he's limber. You read the ads for cruise ships or listen to, and they all are 5-star cruise ships, gourmet dining that are just, and it's not like that. There are cruise ships at all different levels of cruising. There are beautiful, well-run, wonderful cruise ships, and then it runs the gamut down to just really bad ones. I mean, and old. There's some old ships. If they're made of wood, I think right then you should just. I'm lucky. I work on just wonderful ships, and I got a letter from a friend of mine who's on another ship, and it was kind of a low-budget cruise. It was a world cruise, 3 months around the world for $495. And right then you should be nervous, but I thought I'd read this letter. You get an idea of what the low end of cruising is all about. Dear Mike, our ship is docked in New York, and we just got back from our midnight walking tour of the Bronx. It was quite successful, as over half of us made it. Last night we met the captain and now know what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. Does your ship have homeless people? Ours didn't when we started, but this casino is tough. It's cheap, too. They just fired one of the bartenders because he accidentally put some liquor into a drink. Speaking of liquor, the first officer had to be shipped back to Norway because of a drinking problem. They sent him to the Betty Fjord Clinic. Last night was French night in the dining room. To make it authentic, the waiters insulted us and refused to speak English. The food isn't that great. I fed one of the cookies to a seagull and it went, "Tuh!" The ship's photographers are everywhere. I don't think they should burst into staterooms at 3 a.m. But they do sell a lot of pictures. When I made my reservation, they promised me a veranda. Next time, I'm going to make sure there's a stateroom attached to it. This morning, I sent some clothes to the laundry, got back a thank you note. Yesterday, we got a distress call from some boat people, but when they saw our ship, they changed their mind. This ship is cheap. In the health club, when people get off the treadmills, the ship slows down. I have to go now. Our stewardess just kicked us out of our stateroom so she could have some quality time with her boyfriend. Wish you were here, Fred. Funny business. It's a weird business. When I started out, I thought I was going to be world famous in about a week or two. Just thought I was going to be a huge star, and that didn't happen. I've got little bits of fame. I'm famous in certain places, like in Calgary, Alberta. They play these shows a lot in Calgary, and I can walk down the street, people say hi, and it's really nice. When I want to feel famous, I go to Calgary. If I want to be left alone, I go to Los Angeles. Some people try and fake it. You see a lot of the late night TV ads and stuff, they say, international star, Royal Command performance, headline in Las Vegas. And then they give you the name and you think, who is this guy? Why have I never heard of him? And then you read the fine print, international star. Yeah. Once sang at the International House of Pancakes. Did a Royal Command performance. Did a warm-up for Queen for a Day. Headlined in Las Vegas. Headline read, itinerant musician arrested for vagrancy. So people fake it. I don't fake it. I know that I've got a little bit of fame, but not a lot. And that's okay. In the old days, I used to get jealous. I used to get frustrated. And now I think I'm very lucky being where I am in the business. I think it's a wonderful place because superstars, these megastars, they just have a terrible life. I mean, they have to deal with a whole bunch of stuff that I don't have to deal with. Superstars get nude pictures of themselves posted on the internet. And I've never had to deal with that. And I've sent out hundreds of nude pictures. Superstars have stalkers, which is a horrible deal, having a stalker, wouldn't it be? Although I'm a competitive person. If someone stalked me, I'd be tempted to stalk them right back. I'll show you stalking. Actually, I did have a stalker. A few years ago, I had a stalker, and she dumped me. Right then, your career's in trouble. You get a Dear John letter from your stalker, you got a problem. Famous people have horrible stories written about them in the tabloids, right? And I've never had to deal with that. You've never seen headlines, Mike Neun gives birth to twin space aliens. And I'm happy about that, because it's hard enough raising space aliens without having a bunch of people who are looking over your shoulder. I raised them. I think I did a pretty good job. They're grown up now. Last year, they both ran for president. Madonna can't get her car out of the driveway. Did you read that? Because her fans just clog up everything. She can't get her car out, can't go places. I can't tell you how many times she has called me and said, Mike, how have you managed to avoid all these hassles that go with fame? And I tell her it's not easy. You have to have strategies. For one thing, if you're trying to avoid fame, for God's sakes, don't do your shows in Las Vegas and New York and Los Angeles. Do them in Spokane, Washington. Also, if you're trying to avoid fame, you should never have sex with a famous person. This is the Monica Lewinsky rule. She had sex with Bill Clinton, and now her life is a shambles. If she'd had sex with me, none of that would have happened. But she couldn't find me because I was in Spokane, Washington. You've been a wonderful audience. It's just been a joy. And I'm going to close out with a song about scandals. Because we all, we claim to hate the scandals. I mean, they just come right after another. We got O.J. and then Clinton and then Elian Gonzalez, the election. Now Jesse Jackson is having a scandal. And it's just, and we all say, oh, they're awful, and we want no part of them. And then we got that TV clicked on. No, it was, the ratings just through the roof. The Clinton thing, that was a big one. I think that was the biggest one in recent years. And months, and there was hypocrisy on all sides, and it was just a horrible deal. But for comedians, it was like dying and going to heaven. The best part about that whole deal, everyone said the same thing. Everyone said it wasn't so bad that he cheated on his wife. The bad thing was that he lied. Yeah, right. Once you cheat on your wife, you don't have a lot of options. You can lie or you can die. I was on cruise ships probably when a lot of that was going on. Those people said the same thing. It was awful. He lied. It was terrible. He lied. It was just terrible. And then they got off the ships and filled out their customs forms. But every now and then we get a lull between scandals. And there's like kind of a gap and everyone gets nervous. And then CNN gets really nervous. You don't have a scandal, CNN goes into the minus ratings. But as a public service, I've gone back in history and I've made up some scandals to fill up these gaps. And I'd like to do this song for you now. Again, I'd like to say it's been a great night, and you can join in on this song if you like. This is what I do when I can't think of a big Las Vegas closer. Just get people to try and join in and make it sound big. This is your part. Scandal, scandal, you just have to love it. No society ever lifts above it. We love when pompous people become too hot to handle. Oh Lord, won't you please give us another scandal? Okay, go for it. Scandal, scandal, you just have to love it. Ready? Scandal, scandal, you just have to love it. No society ever lifts above it. No society ever lifts above it. We love when pompous people become too hot to handle. Oh Lord, won't you please give us another scandal? We love when pompous people become too hot to handle. Oh Lord, won't you please give us another scandal? Who can forget the great codfish scandal of 1922? It happened in Hawaii. The great fishing fleet was owned by Don Ho's grandfather, Westward. And his brother, Gung. Westward wanted to take over the fish business, so he knocked out Gung, threw him in a boat, and set him adrift. He floated for 173 days with no food or water and nearly died. Luckily, he was rescued by his sister, Tally. They came back and charged Westward with attempted murder. He escaped, fled to South Korea, took over the codfish business in the capital city, and became known as the Codfather of Seoul. Thank you. This is your part. Ready? Scandal, scandal. Scandal, scandal. You just have to love it. No society ever lifts above it. We love when pompous people become too hot to handle. Oh Lord, Lord, won't you please give us another scandal? And who can forget the great scandal of 1926? Explorers found an island in the South Pacific where every year they had a fertility ceremony. In it, the maidens wore garlands of flowers. If the garlands were white, it meant the maidens were pure and virginal. If the garlands were brown and wilted, it meant there was some doubt. If the garlands turned black and yelled, "Liar, liar, pants on fire," there was a lot of doubt. The The maidens thought this was a sexist practice, and so one day they all went out and bought pre-wilted garlands. This totally confused the men. They got very upset, and they ripped off their pants and ran around in their underwear. This became known as the Boxer Rebellion. And it was a huge scandal. Scandal. You just have to love it. No society ever lifts above it. We love when pompous people become too hot to handle. Oh Lord, won't you please give us another scandal? And who can forget the great Tiddlywink scandal of 1932? The All-English Championships. Sir Archibald Biddle was playing Durwood Dink in the finals. Just as Dink was about to tiddle for the title, Biddle sneezed. Dink blinked and tiddled his wink at bullet-like speed into Biddle's middle. Biddle was awarded a penalty tiddle, promptly tiddled his wink into Dink's drink. Unthinkable. You can't tiddle in a toddy. Biddle and Dink were thrown in the clink for wayward winking. At the trial, Biddle refused to tattle on the tiddle, but Dink finked. They were kicked out of England. They ended up on a South Pacific island where they married women with pre-wilted garlands and lived happily ever after. Scandal, scandal, you just have to love it. Thank you very much. It's been a great night. I love books. I love to read. I'd read more, but my lips get tired. They say women buy 80% of all fiction. Did you know that? I find that hard to believe. I've tried to sell fiction to women for years.